vote to join this call. It's a great privilege to have Dr. Ganapathy talk to us today. Dr. Ganapathy is a neurosurgeon and currently is at Apollo Hospital, Chennai. He is the past president of Telemedicine Society of India. Probably you can say he's the father of telemedicine in India. We can even say that. Former secretary and past president of Neurological Society of India. He has been an adjunct professor at IIT Madras and Anna University. Also a distinguished professor at Dr. MGR Tamil Nadu Medical University. Dr. Ganapathy was formerly an honorary consultant advisor in neurosurgery for Armed Forces Medical Services. In 1990, he became the first in South Asia to get a PhD in neuroimaging. He is a member of editorial board of 4 international and 4 national journals in telemedicine and neurosciences. He was the first neurosurgeon from South Asia to be formally trained in stratostatic radiosurgery in 1995. I hope I pronounced it properly, doctor. And later in robotics radiosurgery in 2008. He has been an advisor to the advisory committee, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. He also does a lot of mentoring of MBA scholars from Harvard, University of Michigan, and Yale University. He is also a WHO's expert in digital health. He is one of the most sought after speakers when it comes to medicine and technology. Sometimes I wonder how one individual can accomplish so much. What I have read so far or said so far is a very small part of it. If you really want to go and look at what he has achieved, I will strongly recommend that you can go and take a look at www.kganapathy.com, where his full CV and other achievements are given, and also some of his accomplishments. Being a neurosurgeon, he knows better how the brain works. So what he has done, he has split the talks into 2 sections. The first section is role of technology in enabling digital health, followed by a question answer. As Robin said, you can put your questions on the chat box or raise your hand. But this is a great opportunity to, engage with Dr. Ganapathy, because it's very difficult to get him. With great difficulty we got him. So it's a rare opportunity. So I urge everyone to make use of this time. The second talk will be role of technology in healthcare in 2030. A peep into the future, and then followed by question answer. So now I request Dr. Ganapathy to take over, sir. Thank you, doctor.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me and see my first slide. At the outset, we wish to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to talk to engineering college students and faculty. Before I go into the digital health and the role of technology, I would like to emphasize again and again that one industry, personally, I don't like the word industry because I think healthcare is something much more sacrosanct. But nevertheless, one industry which is recession-proof, economic proof, everything, whether there is war, whether there is famine, whatever it is, healthcare has to survive even before you're born and today, even after you're dead. In other words, from a job opportunity point of view, whether you are a computer science engineer, electrical, mechanical, chemical, you name it, everything, you always have a place in healthcare. And we as doctors have realized in the last decade particularly that there cannot be healthcare without people like you. And I would like to pay homage to all the most wonderful scientists, engineers, and technologists who are behind us. And while the medical doctor takes all the credit, it is you people who have made all this possible. A strand of RNA changed the way the world looked at technology-enabled remote healthcare. COVID pandemic ensured globally that the whole process of healthcare has been reinvented. I started telemedicine as early as 1998. It took 20 years of evangelization, but in the last 2 years, the growth has been exponential. To ensure we are on the same page, what exactly is the process of telemedicine? It is an interaction between a patient. Today, the word is beneficiary, not a patient. The word doctor is being replaced by healthcare provider. because in the years to come, I foresee that nursing assistants, physician assistant, nurses will take over considerable part of the work which a medical doctor is doing. We require hardware, software, connectivity. You need to acquire images, investigations. We need to store them. We need to retrieve them, display them, and be able to digitally manipulate them from anywhere in the world. This obviously requires orientation, training, customization. No process is effective unless it is cost effective. I strongly believe that a solution is not a solution unless it is universally available. Technology is growing exponentially by leaps and bounds. I have made so many mistakes just not being able to be future ready, not having foreseen the future, and I do not want you to make the same mistake. As retail becomes stronger, what will move out to the hospital? I would like to turn this into another way. I'm absolutely confident that in my lifetime, in the next few years, the hospital in a few years from now will only have departments where procedures are done, where trauma is attended to, and intensive care units. In other words, most of today, what constitutes a hospital will go to where you are. 15 years ago, I wrote articles in the Hindu. I wrote a doctor in your pocket, a laboratory in your pocket, a hospital in your pocket. Today, it has become absolutely realistic. Vaccinations, outpatient departments, imaging, minor procedures, all this will be done in standalone units, and you, the beneficiary, the patient, will take an active part in your own healthcare. Why should I check your blood sugar? You will be able to do it yourself. 4P medicine is what is going to come in vogue very soon. Predictive medicine. It seems so silly that we have thousands of cardiac surgeons in India doing bypass procedures day in and day out, when 90% of this could have been prevented. Yes, exactly what I'm saying, preventive medicine. And again, it is going to be personalized very soon. It's already available in India. It's a little expensive. The cost will come down. What is called genomic medicine. With a couple of cc of blood, we already have genetic laboratories spread across the country, which can foresee what disease you are going to develop based on your genetic history. These predictions, which are unique to the individual, will allow you to, if not prevent, to modify the conditions which you're going to have. So predictive, preventive, personalized, and participatory medicine is the future. Analog health is going to be totally replaced by what is called digital health. And the government of India is truly becoming Make India Digital. I was totally taken aback when in the recent budget, there was mention made about taxing digital assets. I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined that the Reserve Bank of India would take a stand on cryptocurrency. So this is the way that digital India is moving. And the same thing is going to happen in the field of healthcare. Most of you may not realize that the fantastic response which India did, if you compare India with any country in the world, considering that 1/6 of humanity lives in India, we have addressed the COVID issue in a remarkable way. And this was entirely due to technology. COVID-19 surveillance board, real-time dashboards, huge centers of all over the country, in states, in districts, at Delhi, etc., ensured that drug and vaccine distribution was absolutely optimum. I recently gave a talk on supply chain management, hospital information systems, public health solutions, etc. Please remember that the small letter E is going to be added everywhere. We are now talking of e-hospital, we are talking of e-pharmacies, we are talking everything as a letter E. National Digital Health Mission, another great objective of the government, is really doing wonders. The government has already announced that 150,000 health and wellness centers under the Ayushman Bharat scheme is going to start. A few thousands are already operational. And this will have telemedicine centers where in the rural part of India will be connected to the big cities. Now, why am I emphasizing this particularly for the engineers? Because you are going to have employment opportunities as never before. This cannot be done by medical doctors. Gateway for patients to seek medical consultation through mobile phones. How many of you know that Delhi has a tele-density of 180%? Chennai has 135%. In other words, for every 100 people living in Chennai, there are 135 SIM cards. The rural tele-density of India is a staggering 75%. 700 million Indians, according to the TRAI report of last month, access broadband through the wireless. Excepting China, no country in the world does this. So please remember that in the next few years, we certainly are going to be the most technologically advanced, ICT advanced in terms of sheer numbers. Teleradiology services, the Apollo hospitals alone provides almost 30,000 images we report, and with a turnaround time of less than 1.5 hours to the big towns in India. The National Digital Health Mission, I mean, this is too detailed an infographic, but just to tell you that everything is a dashboard. Today, sitting in Delhi, one can know precisely what is happening. We can gauge laboratories, pharmacies, insurance companies, third-party administrators, health tech companies. And this is not confined to allopathy. This also includes Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, modern Ayush medicine, etc. It is efficient, accessible, affordable. This is not a sales pitch. This is happening. And we require the cooperation of all of you if this is really going to succeed. Outsourced laboratories, shared ICUs. For centuries, we have believed a doctor and a patient interact one-to-one. We have always believed that this is strictly confidential. But now the whole concept is changing. And I believe that soon we will have multiple people in the same outpatient. And I think it makes sense. When 10 people have had a heart attack, 9 out of 10, the problems will be similar. So it makes sense to use the limited cardiologists. Today, we have an acute shortage of all specialists in the country. So instead of a cardiologist seeing one patient with a heart attack follow-up, why can't the cardiologist, using technology which you people are going to provide, see 10 people with heart attacks in a remote part of India at the same time? This is what is going to happen. Walmart, a couple of years ago, the biggest pharmacy chain in the United States, proved that you can have outpatient diagnostics in pharmacies, and this is slowly happening in India as well. Now, hospitals were in acute financial distress at the peak of the pandemic. Now that stage is over. Outpatient imaging today has gone retail. Artificial intelligence is one thing which is coming up in a very big way. MedTech and pharma, I'll come to this in a minute. Again, medical appliances, these are equally important. Cyber security concerns. This is not only theoretical. Of course, I think the Western countries are paranoid about cyber security. Luckily, in India, we have still not that become obsessed with breaching cyber security, but I think it is still very important. Now, again, the government of India at a recent conference, 71st World Health Assembly, said that they are going to try to be one of the leaders in global digital health partnership. And in Delhi, a declaration was made to this effect. 19 countries have participated. And I think in a couple of years from now, there's a very good chance of India becoming the chairperson of this committee on digital health. Most of you are technocrats, engineers, and as youngsters, all of us are fascinated by technology. Now, just look at this. Robots in telerehabilitation, augmented reality, chatbot, virtual reality, voice to text applications, etc., etc. There are 51 products here which have been identified as emerging digital health trends. If you look at the bottom side or bottom of the screen, you'll see on the left-hand side, it says rising expectations. In the middle, it says, have already met practical reality. And finally, it says, progressing into the new future of healthcare delivery. So this is what is going to happen. Wearables, smart watches, electronic medical records, portable diagnostic devices, 3D printing, and so on. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes now on the Indian medical device industry. I have been actively involved with this in the last 4 years. I'm a member of several committees of BIRAC, Bioindustry Research Assistant Council, a unit of the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. I have personally evaluated at least 300 to 400 proposals from young engineers, mostly from engineering colleges, the IITs, and other well-known national institutes. Now, funding is available. There is plenty of funding available. Unfortunately, the engineers, the people who want to start startup companies, absolutely committed, they do not have enough knowledge of the actual clinical situation. And I strongly recommend that if you are applying for any such grant, please get a medical doctor as a domain expert in the appropriate specialty, even at the time of conceptualization, not after you build a prototype and then ask him to test it. Now, what do we look for when we want to fund you? 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 2 crores, 3 crores. Yes, funds are available. We need evidence. You have to prove to me that it will better the existing clinical outcome. Unfortunately, engineers and technologists are so fascinated by the possible use of machines. Sometimes I feel that you are developing a solution and then searching for a problem. It should never be like that. I should come to you with a problem and say, hey, look, these are the problems I have. Can you help me? So the novelty, of course, is important. The value, the innovation would bring to the healthcare community, the potential to translate into a differentiated product, a very clear proof of concept. And again, we need intellectual property. You cannot be violating an existing IP, patent landscaping. Considerable weightage is given if you can get a patent, preferably a global patent. Help is there. The government is more than happy to help you with all this. Understanding developmental risks and regulatory complexities, ability to jointly work in scaling up manufacturing, setting up manufacturing and quality processes. Now, just to give you an example, of course, you can add 10% to whatever figures are given here. This slide is about 8 months old. And you can see we have supported almost 500 companies, disbursing more than 640 crores. Academia has also supported. Now, and what is the result of this? This slide shows, just to give you an example of the number of proposals where AI has been used, or rather AI needs to be used. So this is a huge, I am not sure whether you'll be able to read it, but glucose monitoring using IoT, Internet of Medical Things, VR-based software to assess parameters in Alzheimer's disease, and so on and so on. Why am I showing you this slide? This is to show that the field is enormous. There's so much of potential, untapped potential, but please cooperate with a medical doctor. Now, here again, you can see some of the healthcare startup solutions in the market. Of course, the COVID resulted in unprecedented applications for funding, right from face masks. Everything today is indigenous. Masks which are made in India were exported to other countries. Stethoscopes, detection, COVID diagnostic kits. Of course, the pandemic hopefully is mainly behind us. Hand crank defibrillator for sudden cardiac arrest without requiring electric power, hand sanitizing solutions, and so on and so forth. Now, there is a lot of difference between conceptualization, what we call from bench to bedside, from lab to the market. And this requires enormous amount of input. So again, the young person who certainly is more than competent to look at the technology part, you may require some assistance in seeing what are the real problems in the real world. Less than 10% of products successfully proceed from the lab to the market. So these are just to show you how startup solutions offered specifically for COVID-19. Today, we have incubators all over the country, South India, Western India, etc. BioNest incubators, rentals are waived. So many things are, the help is being provided by the government. All is not necessarily being used. Just to give you a few examples, this was totally indigenously made, an intelligent standalone diagnostic and drug dispensing platform. So you in 6 different languages, Gujarati, Marathi, Hindi, etc. The patient sits in front there, voice recognition software. You may always think this is an overkill, but if this is properly done, this could be a big asset in helping to provide healthcare under the supervision of a medical doctor. It is so designed, you put your hand inside, the blood pressure is taken, pulse rate is taken, temperature is taken, sugars levels are monitored, and this whole thing is so beautifully designed. Of course, it took several years before it came into the clinical stage, and today it is possible even to analyze your cough and reduce to a differential diagnosis. The eye doctor, as it is called, is an attempt to go beyond the current telemedicine model and support Indian citizens to get affordable healthcare services. I foresee that kiosks like this will soon be available not only in rural India, but also in corporate offices. It makes sense. Why should a student studying in an engineering college, if he needs medical help, why should he spend half a day or even one day going to hospital to see a doctor? All engineering colleges are very well equipped with maybe 1 Gbps bandwidth. You have excellent bandwidth, internet connection, computers, etc. So it is very simple today to convert the existing infrastructure available not only in engineering colleges, medical colleges, in most of the institutions into a remote telemedicine setup. I'm very fond of this particular site. We run the world's largest public-private partnership tele-ophthalmology unit for the last 4 years. Nowhere in the world, and I have done extensive literature survey, we have published 2 papers in internationally renowned journals. Nowhere in the world do they do about 150 retinal examination of the fundus. I have 30 ophthalmologists in Chennai. These are villages in Telangana, 135 villages belonging to the government. This is a public-private partnership. On the top left-hand side, you can see this gentleman is not even a certified optometrist. He's actually a 12th standard person who's passed 12th standard, trained for a few months, and you can see the patient is peering into the equipment there, and my doctor in Chennai is able to see the fundus. We have a semi-automated, semi-AI differential diagnosis, automated annotation, and within 22 minutes, that is our mean turnaround time. In 22 minutes, the patient gets a color printout with annotated images digitally signed by an ophthalmologist. And if abnormalities are found, he is advised to go to the nearest tertiary center, which also he is told what it is. So this is the fundus report illustration. We have done 450,000 such fundus examinations now in the last 3 years. All this has been done with indigenously made fundus cameras, which cost 5% of the cost in the international market. Of course, this implies excellent backup, excellent connectivity, and a superb operational system, which we have put into place over the last 1 to 1.5 years. Again, in my earlier talks, I would be getting slides, I would be getting information on AI in healthcare from the internet. Today, I am able to get this information from our own personal experience. Many of the tertiary care hospitals in India already have started AI. But again, I belong to the BC era. BC, I'm not talking of before Corona, I'm talking of before computers. I was the last group of neurosurgeons in this country who were trained before there was a CT scan, before there were even computers in hospitals. So I think there is a hype. There's too much of importance given to AI. We need to remember that is NI, native intelligence or natural intelligence, which should be driving AI. We have several collaborative projects with Google, with Microsoft, which we use in our master health checkup, not only at the Apollo hospitals, the Aravind Eye Hospital in Madurai, one of the world's largest ophthalmic group of hospitals. They are now in a very advanced stage of clinical trials of using, evaluating diabetic retinopathy using AI. And so far, the concordance rate between a machine diagnosing and a very senior experienced ophthalmologist diagnosing is almost 95%. So AI is going to be a part of routine healthcare, at least in tertiary hospitals in the next couple of years. Unfortunately, it is not so simple as that. The law is never, ever able to keep up with technology. We have hundreds of questions now about regulatory issues. If something goes wrong, can I take refuge behind? And I say I was only following what AI told me to do. Do I have the authority, the moral right, the legal right to overturn the AI recommendation and to do what I want, and so on and so forth? So this is going to be a problem. It will be years before all this is going to be sorted out. Now, in the next slide, you can see these are words which I never thought would be used in a hospital. Please remember, I'm a medical doctor, not a professor of computer science. But this is what doctors of tomorrow, doctors of today need to be used. The MD, I do not know about the MBBS course, but the MD and DM courses already starting will necessarily need the postgraduates, the specialists in training will need to know what exactly is quantum computing, what is spatial computing, because big data analysis plays a very major role in whole genome synthesis in analysis. Again, testing of drugs. Normally, testing of a drug used to take 15 years, 12 to 15 years before all the trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, etc. It is such a complex process. That is why drugs are also very, very expensive. COVID showed that with the use of computer technology, we could test the drugs not in vivo, as we call it, not inside the body of a human being. Of course, we do test that before it is released into the market, but several years of animal experimentation and so on is now replaced by what are called virtual patients. Today, it is possible to simulate in an algorithm what is known as in silico medicine or testing of drugs on virtual organs. Today, I can simulate an 80-year-old person with liver disease, a 3-year-old baby with diabetes type 1, and so on and so forth. What would normally take 5 years to do a clinical trial, today I can do it in 5 weeks. Replacing humans with simulations make clinical trials faster and safer. The FDA, which is the most difficult agency to get permission from, they're already using computer simulations for evaluating several new systems. Major companies like Microsoft and Amazon are heavily invested in spatial computing. Again, it's a matter of great pride that particularly from Tamil Nadu and Kerala, the recent COVID pandemic made hundreds of engineering colleges, hundreds of them literally, final year students came up with drones. I had run a one-day conference on drones 4 years ago. Everybody laughed and ridiculed me, but now the necessity has come. And today we use drones in a regular way. These drones are 100% manufactured in India, manufactured in small regional hubs. Again, robots, several engineering colleges in Kerala, which I know of, they have sold robots to hospitals, to district hospitals, and today robots have just started being used to help the nurse to turn over a patient who is semi-conscious, unconscious, and so on. I foresee the use of robots not only in the operation theater. We have, to my knowledge, at least 100 theaters in India which use Da Vinci, which cost several crores, are more sophisticated for robotic surgery, particularly for the prostate. I'm not talking of robotic surgery. I'm talking of robots which will be used to help nurses, nursing assistants, etc. Again, robots have just started being used as receptionists. There's no limit to where we can use robots. So robots and drones are going to be used. This is a more modern version of the health kiosk, which I showed you earlier. Apollo Hospitals is now in the process of doing some proof of concept validation, pilot studies. We have tied up with several very big corporates. These kiosks are physically located in a corporate office with, let's say, 800,000, 1,200 employees. The entire data is here. And as you can see, this is to a large extent autonomous, independent, provides quick and convenient preventive health screening and access to certified doctors. Now, when all this is happening, particularly in the field of healthcare, it is essential that we never ever lose sight of quality control. We as a group are obsessed with quality control. We not only train our staff, we untrain them. We think untraining and retraining them is much more important than training. And we are very happy that in December last year, we were the first in the world to get an ISO 13131 telehealth services. This is a certification globally offered by the Bureau of International Standards, and we were the first in the world to get ISO 13131 telehealth services. So this is the future. This is what is going to happen. And seems to be some problem with my, okay. Now this, I hope this works. Yeah, sorry, this is a, yeah, I hope you can see the video. This again, we have, over the last 6 months, we have done a very extensive trial with the government of Telangana, with Niti Aayog and other companies. We have now fine-tuned the various problems which are on the field. We have started transporting vaccines, started transporting blood, and so on and so forth. This is extremely cost-effective. Lest some of you think this is an overkill, believe me, there are many, many places in India where it is easier to get a drone and send a drone rather than get a courier service. So I believe that drones are going to be used in hospitals and even within hospitals, large hospitals, 1,000-bedded hospital. So today drones are getting so sophisticated, we can fly just 10 feet, 15 feet above you, inside, under the ceiling, and so on. So I believe that conveyor belts will perhaps be replaced by drones, or may not be replaced, in addition to conveyor belts. So drones are going to be a very major source of use. Now, this is all the plus side. All this I've been talking of technology. This cartoon, perhaps, also to give you a very balanced view. Look at this. It says, in order to make an appointment, he had to update his operating system, download an app, get a username, choose a password, log in, etc., etc. By that time, it was too late. Of course, this is a cartoon, but the message is that we need to make things user-friendly. We need to understand that 1/6 of India's population at the moment are senior citizens. It is not that easy for somebody above the age of 60, 65 to be able to do all this. So far as healthcare is concerned, I would always like to emphasize again and again that technology is a means to achieving an end and not an end by itself. Healthcare is totally different from e-commerce. Okay, you can buy a pizza online, you can buy a railway ticket online, a cinema ticket, an air ticket. But how comfortable would I, as a doctor familiar with technology, would I really be comfortable in seeing my doctor on a big screen and the doctor telling me you got an advanced cancer of the brain, you're not going to live for more than 5 months? So this is something which possibly I would like to hear directly, physically, in front of the doctor. So in other words, tender loving care, the ability to empathize with the patient, the ability to sympathize with the patient, the ability to get into the brain of the mind of the beneficiary, understand what he wants, and then it has to be contextual. I like that word contextual. And the telemedicine practice guidelines have clearly mentioned that so far as medico-legal aspects are concerned, it is entirely contextual. In other words, I and I alone, the doctor, will decide on what technology is to be used, when, where, how. I may not use a technology today. I may use it tomorrow. I may use it in the morning. I may not use it in the evening. And therefore, the healthcare is too complex to be reduced to a series of algorithms. Yes, you people are absolutely fantastic, but I just don't think it'll be possible to reduce to algorithms, equations, mathematical methods to understand what exactly the person wants. And I, I don't like to call myself old-fashioned, but as a doctor with white hair, I am concerned that today's doctors, today's generations are going to be outstanding carpenters. There'll be wonderful plumbers. There'll be superb electricians. They'll be able to get into a blood vessel 2 millimeters diameter in an unborn baby. Yes, they are all able to do that. But will they be able to empathize with the beneficiary, understand what he wants? And this is something we are slowly losing sight of. Technology should not replace the good old-fashioned tender loving care, which is what a doctor's primary concern is. Having said that, I would like to, most of the other things I'll be talking in my second talk. So having said that, I would like to once again place on record that whatever we have achieved today is entirely because of the tremendous momentum, the tremendous enthusiasm displayed by engineers, scientists, and technologists. In fact, yesterday, I was just talking to somebody. I've been keeping a note of all the talks I have been giving right from 1975 onwards. My first talk was in 1975. And I noticed that so far as telemedicine, telehealth, digital health, and this is concerned, 90% of the talks I have given, 90% of the webinars, etc., initiative has been taken by engineering colleges, technology, by mobile network operators, by the technology industry, and not by medical colleges or by doctors or healthcare system. I honestly am at a loss to understand why the medical community is not taking the initiative to have a talk on technology in healthcare. It is always the engineering group who do this. So this is something, so this probably shows that engineers do have an interest in healthcare. And I think it is fully justified for the simple reason that healthcare will always be there. So long as humankind exists on earth, you need healthcare, you need technology. And I'm very, very happy that today the gap between the engineering college and the medical college is becoming less and less. I think I'll stop with the first talk here. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Participants, you can ask your questions, either type your questions in the chat box or you can raise your hand so that I will unmute you.
Okay, yeah, put the questions on the chat box or raise your hand, then we can unmute you, please. Okay, I have a few questions which are taken up from the chat box, Doctor. One question that has come up is this: how accurate are the test results measured by the patient themselves, particularly, let's say, a wearable device or a glucometer? How reliable they are when compared to a lab test?
That's a very good question. The answer is in a word which I used just now, contextual. So as I said again, laboratory results are not the be-all and end-all of life. I expect the clinician to be mature enough to decide how much weightage to give to that lab result at that particular point of time, at that context, etc., and then to take a decision regarding clinical management. Having said that, generally, a POCD, point of care diagnostics, it is called, go through a series of testing. I mean, the testing is, I can assure them that it's almost to 2,000, 3,000 patients they are tested with the gold standard, age, sex match, under different conditions, under different temperatures. It's an extremely stringent process. And please be assured that you do not get, or you should not get, the necessary licenses unless the concordance rate is at least 95%. It will not be 100%, obviously, but honestly, in a real life situation, it doesn't matter to me as a doctor whether the patient's blood sugar is 117 or 121. It matters if 117 is wrongly reported as 90 or 140, but 117 being reported as 122 doesn't matter. So 2 to 3% plus minus, that means a 5% error should not influence clinical management. You need to consider the convenience, the context in which it is done. And even if it is a 2% inaccuracy, the conveniences offered far outweigh the so-called 2% inaccuracy.
Thank you very much. So I think all of us can be now feel comfortable if the reading goes up or down by 5%. That's a very good, that's a fantastic benchmark, doctor. I think that gives a lot of comfort to people. You know, that's a very nice one. Okay.
I think we have that Arun Dev and Krishna Kumar is also joined from our team.
Okay, great. Okay. Now, one more question that is there in the chat box, doctor, is that, see, you talked about a lot of, venture capital funding is available for this. Is there any lead or a pointer that you can give it to the students so that, either they about to finish their education BA or in between, they can go and approach there? Is there a forum where all the medical type of projects which are being channelized through this agency? Is there anything like that, doctor?
Yeah. Now, when I said funding is available, yes, funding is available, but obviously there'll be a very, very competitive and B, rigorous, so that we do not want a failure rate. So when we give 100 crores, we want at least 80 crores of that 100 crores to produce a productive result. So it will be very, very strict. It should be necessary, etc. One simple source is BIRAC, BIRAC.in. If you just Google BIRAC.in, that's their website is very, very extensive. They have about 8 or 9 different projects, big, that, this, etc. And that will give all the details, eligibility criteria, etc., etc. But the students need to know very clearly that by applying, you're not going to get money. You have to, really spend effort and time. And for an experienced person, it takes me just 10 minutes reading a proposal to know whether the proposal is realistic, whether in the real world, whether it's going to apply. But one thing I can assure you is, particularly our committee in the last couple of years, we have, when we feel there is meat in a proposal, but the proposal has several deficiencies, we do not throw it into the waste paper basket. We go out of our way, we speak to them, call them. I have personally ensured that 2 or 3 applicants spend 1 month at CMC Vellore, 1 month in All India Institute of Medical Science, etc., work under a specialist. When we think that somebody has a potential, we go out of our way to ensure that you must be teachable, you must be trainable. So that category of people, yes. So BIRAC would be a good source. They can find out. And at a personal level, of course, 1 or 2 calls, I don't mind, talking to them and telling them whether it is doable or not.
Excellent. Doctor, maybe your camera has moved a little bit. You have to.
Sorry.
You're okay now. Okay. Doctor, one more question is there, which says, can I mix with allopathy and other type of medication like Unani or Ayurvedam from a reliable source? Is there a combination good or bad? What is your recommendation?
Answer to that question is very simple. I do not know. And unfortunately, today, every doctor is expected to be a walking encyclopedia. I honestly don't know. But my general knowledge, common sense tells me that it is not absolutely contraindicated. The only problem we have is one of the grouses which allopathic doctors have against Ayurveda, Unani, homeopathy, Siddha. We are not against it. We believe in it. We have seen patients who have responded to the treatment, but for some reason, there is an unwillingness on the part of those practitioners to share. Either they don't know themselves or they are unwilling to share to us the chemical constituents of a drug, which can easily be analyzed in all modern laboratories. So unless I know, now I'll give you one example. I don't like to be personal, but it will convey the message. About 40 years ago, when my father was 65 years old or 67 years old, he had a gastric ulcer. He had a large ulcer in the stomach. Endoscope had just come to India at that time. And because I was a postgraduate student, I was able to get it. My father had an endoscopy, showed a very large ulcer. Every medical student is taught that anybody above the age of 65, when you have a large ulcer along the greater curvature of the stomach and so on, is malignancy unless proved otherwise. The head of the Department of Surgery, Madras Medical College, posted him for surgery. I was devastated. Anything. Then the head of the Department of Medical Gastroenterology, he said, why don't you just wait for a few more? Then he went into detailed history, which the younger doctors don't. And then we found that my father was taking Ayurvedic Lehium. You know, those days was very common. So he was taking a Lehium prescribed by an Ayurvedic doctor. He had been taking this for about 2 years or 3 years. And then the professor of head of the Department of Medical Gastroenterology, he said, why are you in such a hurry? Just wait give me 1 week, give me 10 days and let us see. And then we diagnosed that again, because I was a postgraduate, I was able to get all this done. We found arsenic in the Lehium, and then we stopped that Lehium and gave some antidote to arsenic, and like magic, the ulcer totally disappeared. My father lived for 30 years after that. So now I was able to get it done. God was very kind to us. But these sort of things happen. So that is why the old-fashioned doctor who asks history, today that would not have happened at all. I mean, today you do an endoscopy as an outpatient procedure, you find a big ulcer in the stomach, in 1 hour he's taken to, while doing the endoscopy and a biopsy is taken, then the biopsy is inconclusive, he is told you go to surgery, the ulcer is excised, all because we did not get the history. So this is the answer. Answer to your question is yes. There's nothing says allopathy and other systems of medicine are totally antagonistic to each other. But if I were doing it, I would like to know what is the composition of the other treatment. If it is not a medication, then it's perfectly all right. If it is, doing yoga, if it is having a bath 4 times, or it is sitting in the sun or something, that's fine. But anything which you consume, anything which you are forced to drink or eat, I would not do it without knowing the chemical constituents.
Excellent, doctor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, any more questions, please, before we jump on to the next session, please? Please raise your hand or put on the chat box, please.
Participants, you can use this opportunity to asking questions.
Well, I think one more question is coming up, doctor, is that do you feel that post-pandemic, the person is asking whether telemedicine will continue or the teleconsultation will continue during like pandemic? So are we going into a new normal?
I would rephrase the question. I would have expected the question to be, following the pandemic, do you think face-to-face consultation will continue? That is the question which I would have expected, because all studies indicate that face-to-face consultation is definitely going to come down over the next couple of years. What started as a knee-jerk reaction, what started as what we call behavioral modification, out of you were forced to speak to a doctor on the phone, he was forced to speak to a doctor on a WhatsApp video, on that and this, etc. Over the last 2 years, people have now realized more important than the people, the government. I've been repeatedly stating that unless there is a government will, nothing can happen. Today, the government of India today we have a joint secretary level officer in the Ministry of Health, Government of India, exclusively for telemedicine. We have additional secretary level officers in most health departments. Every one of the 590 medical colleges in India by law have to have a nodal officer for telemedicine. Very soon there will be a district nodal officer for telemedicine, etc., etc., etc. It's going to take time, but believe me, face-to-face consultations will come down over the next 5 to 10 years, maybe earlier than later.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor, for all your excellent responses. Probably, since there are no more questions, I don't see that. Probably we can go into the next session, and people can meanwhile also type questions. We can put it at the end of the second session, please. Yes, Doctor, it's up to you.
Okay. Now, this paper should be a little more interesting and exciting, at least to me. Futurology is a pseudoscience. So futurology is a pseudoscience where the cutting edge technology of today is extrapolated into the future. This has been my hobby for 50 years now. The first talk I gave in 1980, when I just qualified as a neurosurgeon, was on neurosciences in 2000. Now, subsequently, of course, over the years, I have learned that it's impossible to predict. I've learned the very hard way that the future is ahead of schedule. So that is what I have learned. Now, before I go into the technology part of how the world is going to be 8 years from now, I think we all need to know how the world will be 8 years from now. Continued economic growth. I'm very optimistic that the Ukraine war and all the present increased cost of oil, etc., is all temporary. As Lloyd C. Douglas said, this too will pass. I'm very confident that in a year, 2 years from now, India will bounce back with an untold resilience, and we certainly are going to become a superpower. This is what the CIA said in a report 10 years ago. The CIA said that in 2030-35, India, they called it Chindia. They said China and India are going to become the superpowers of the world. USA and Europe would have lost their scientific and technological supremacy. Most important thing which is going to happen, which already has started happening from 2020, earlier on there was an adoption lag. Since a new technology was introduced, I remember even in the field of medicine, it would take 1 year, 2 years before we actually adopted it. Today, when iPhone 13 comes into the market, it is adopted within 6 months, not 3 months, 2 months, not necessarily by people who can afford it. Now, let's spend a minute looking at how the world is going to be in just 10 years from now. The fourth industrial revolution. I've just taken some extracts from articles published in the leading journals of the world, like Nature and so on. 90% of restaurants will use some form of a 3D footprinter. Today, genetically modified sausages artificially produced in the lab, meat artificially produced in the lab by genetic synthesis are already being sold in the United States. Can you imagine a highway designated as driverless vehicles only? Yes, this is going to happen. I first saw a driverless vehicle in Google about 10 years ago. My son works in Google, and when I went to visit his office, he showed me how a driverless vehicle was going along. I never would have thought that today there are thousands of driverless vehicles. So it is not surprising there'll be a highway designated for driverless vehicles. Marijuana legalized in 50 states in the US and half of foreign countries. There'll be more robots than workers. I don't know whether this is true, but I just don't know. This is what is said. Digital payments the norm. This I certainly think is going to happen. I mean, I still am not familiar with GPay and Paytm and that and this, but I find the lady who gives me what do you call flowers, jasmine flowers, 12 rupees a day, 15 rupees a day. She wants all transactions to be done on GPay. A 10 rupee transaction today is done by GPay. So digital payment is certainly going to become the norm. Current paper currencies may even totally disappear 15 to 20 years from now. liquid biopsy. I mean, 30 years ago, we were all thinking when we were postgraduates, we used to say, if only we could diagnose a brain tumor with a drop of blood. We did not know the science then. Today, it is possible to diagnose a brain tumor with biomarkers in the blood. A paper was presented 3 years ago at the American Association of Neurosurgeons meeting, urine examination to detect what are called arteriovenous malformations in the brain, vascular abnormalities in the brain will let out certain biomarkers which can be examined, detected in urine. I mean, can you even think of urine examination for a brain tumor? So this is going to become commonplace in 10 years from now. Satellite networks, Elon Musk and various other people, I understand more than 60,000 satellites are functionally active right now. Even as I talk now, 1 trillion connected devices are interconnected with each other. This trillion is going to become a zillion. So that is how the world is going to be. Gamification. When my grandchildren were playing with games, as an old-fashioned person, I used to get very annoyed. I used to tell this is not the way, they will get addicted to it. I don't like them playing games, video games. But today I have realized that video games is going to be a part of the psychiatrist's armamentarium, and the counselor of tomorrow will be using games. So behavioral science is going to totally change. We recently had a small program on the metaverse where virtual reality, augmented virtual reality, extended virtual reality, etc. was shown to simulate real life experience. Smart home devices, yes, we are familiar with moods, with lighting and music, but these smart homes will become much smarter than before. This was a paper presented at the World Economic Forum 2 years ago, but no, sorry, this was presented long ago. This was presented in 2015. So as early as 2015, the World Economic Forum said 10% of people wearing clothes connected to the internet. This was what was predicted to occur by 2025. And I see no reason to believe that this is wrong. 90% of the population will have regular access to the internet. India today, 70% already has access to the internet. 10% of all cars on US roads will be driverless. The first transplant of a 3D printed liver, and so on and so forth. I hope this video works. This was what was shown at Dubai. This was what was shown at Dubai about 10 days ago. I would have thought, okay, this is a great stunt, a nice marketing ploy. But at the same time, I have the greatest respect for IIT, and the organizers of this conference are all distinguished alumni of IIT. So whatever comes from IIT, I just take it for 100% it is right. I was astonished when a newspaper item came that a group, a startup company from IIT have already got funding. They're working with a prototype, and IIT Madras says that such an e-plane will be tested in the city of Chennai in a few years from now. Maybe it will take a little longer, but nevertheless, this is going to happen. And I somehow feel that in my lifetime, I'm going to see people flying and taking off from the terrace of one house, going to the airport and coming back. It's not as absurd as it looks now. So this is the world we are going to encounter 10 years from now. Again, I am a staunch nationalist. I'm a citizen of this country. I've spent 7 decades of my life only in India. And I was delighted that as early as 10 years ago, the Niti Aayog had formed a think tank and brought out a special e-paper in 2018, sorry, not 10 years ago, on National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence, AI for All. So as I said again and again, when the government is driving it, you can be assured that the industry is going to go. And among the 5 sectors which Niti Aayog feels can adopt AI, healthcare ranks the second. Now, these are just some examples of bench to bedside products, supported by BIRAC, which are now commercially available and totally indigenous, made in India, point of care diagnostics and hearing. These were all being produced at 10 to 15% of the imported cost before. This is one of my slides, which I really don't like, but then this is the true world. I got this slide in 2012, 10 years ago. I had to search to find where this premature baby was. You can see this premature baby, and this is the technology which was used to save this premature baby. At what cost? Probably then it cost about $10,000 or $15,000 a day 10 years ago. Now, where are we today? Today, we are talking of non-invasive blood sugar monitoring. There are several groups in India which are doing this. This is already available, FDA approved in the United States. Unfortunately, in the real world, there's a tremendous, I won't say protest. See, multinational companies who talk in terms of trillion, not billion, but trillion. Just imagine if glucometers go out of market. We are talking of the GDP of many states in South Africa put together. That is the market for blood sugar monitoring. So there's a lot of resistance, but I'm sure that soon we will have a sensor which is under your watch or somewhere, which will automatically measure the blood sugar, Bluetooth enabled, send the information to a central monitoring system. You won't even know that your blood sugar has gone up. And if you happen to be a brittle diabetic, as we say, we will always have it so easy to put 10,000 units of insulin in a special depot preparation, a very simple procedure, instill it under your thigh. And when your sugar goes up, automatically 5 units of insulin will be released without you are not even being aware of it. This is all being done now, but then it's a question of time before it comes into the real world. It becomes cost effective. Human breath. Could you imagine that by breathing out into a special device with multiple sensors, with biometric, with the photocolorimetry, the color changes. 17 diseases today have been shown to have specific biomarkers which have a color coding. So I believe that breathing out into special devices will be a diagnostic method of detecting many conditions involved with the breathing system, respiratory system, with the lung, the trachea, the bronchi, and so on. Voice biomarkers, the way I talk. Of course, as a human being, I can only know about pitch, tone, rhythm, that, this, etc. But again, with excellent software and hardware, there are biomarkers which will analyze in great detail how you talk, and you will be able to diagnose lots of diseases associated, again, both with the respiratory system and with the voice box and so on. A new medical system is going to develop called augmentative or restorative neurology. For centuries, doctors have been believed to be people who will diagnose, evaluate, treat, set right, modify, change conditions already existing. But would you go to a doctor to make you stronger so that you can run a marathon? Would you go to a doctor so that he can do something which will make you swim much more, which will make you get admission to IIT, JEE? It may not be as ridiculous as it sounds now. In 10 to 15 years from now, theoretically, it is possible that your learning capacity could be altered to make you smarter, more intelligent, and perhaps the IIT entrance examination coaches, which is $1 billion industry, they would be hiring neurosurgeons and neurophysiologists to tell them how to make the IIT JEE students more receptive. This is actually been happening. It is still in the animal experimental stage. It's just a course of time. Again, a couple of months ago, one of my relatives asked me whether I was chipped. I didn't understand it first. And then she told me that a cousin in Sweden had just got chipped. Apparently, Europe has just started where getting chipped means putting a chip under your skin so that you just wave your hand and the door opens, you wave your hand, your computer opens, etc. This has already started in Europe, so very soon we will become chipped. Brain-machine interface. As early as 10 years ago, I remember I was a co-guide for a research scholar in Anna University whose PhD thesis was on a brain-machine interface. I supplied him with some hemiplegic patients who were paralyzed on one side, for whom an EEG was done, and then he was able to interface the EEG recordings with an external device. So this is not something new as such, but phenomenal progress is now making on this. Again, we have funded some projects on this: smart forks, smart chopsticks, food sensors, dietary chatbots, sensors on table to test food for gluten, peanut, or other allergy. We all know how difficult it is to waste management. We go to a restaurant, we eat, even if it is disposable plates, etc. It's a huge process to dispose them off. So a lot of work is being done now on, instead of having disposable cutlery, instead of having disposable plates, why not eat the plates? Why not eat the fork? Why not eat the spoon? So these are the ways in which the out-of-the-box thinking is being done. And I think many of this, there is a part to play. Last year, the world's first 5G powered remote brain surgery was performed in China. 3,000 kilometers away, a neurosurgeon was able to direct a robot for what is called deep brain stimulation. So you implant an electrode into a specific area inside the brain for patients with Parkinson's disease. We do this routinely in India now. There are more than 25 centers in India where neurosurgeons are trained. The infrastructure is available. The only difference here was the neurosurgeon was 3,000 kilometers away, and he did this using 5G technology. The procedure lasted 3 hours. Telesurgery, though theoretically possible, I mean, I would not be a proponent of this, but I would definitely be a proponent of what I call telementoring, where a surgeon was done, let's say 5 or 6 cases, he's doing the 7th case. There is another surgeon who has done about 80 to 90, 100 patients. He is about 2,000 kilometers away. So using a 1 gigabyte per second bandwidth, 5G, and so on and so forth, the senior surgeon could see in real time. The delay would be less than 1/10 of a second. In real time, he could see what exactly the surgeon is seeing, and he could guide and mentor the surgeon what is to be done. So these are going to happen on a realistic way. Now, engineers are getting more and more involved in neuroprosthesis. Rehabilitation is a major money-making area as well. What started as a Jaipur foot 40 years ago from India, today most prostheses for the reasonably well-to-do people have been replaced with electrical prosthesis. The third phase, or what is in vogue from 2020 onwards, is a marriage between the spinal cord, between the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and an external prosthesis, what is known as bioengineering. And today, prostheses have been physically connected to the brachial plexus, to the peripheral nerves, and to the spinal cord. Trials are going on in this, and as you can see in this slide, the results are very encouraging, and I think this could become a reality in a few years from now. No need for we are all very familiar with voice activated software. Many of you probably are using it, but imagine if you can think, how did I log in today? I use my mouse, I use my keyboard as a medium to interact with the software in the computer. Tomorrow, I could very well have said open Zoom. I could have done it. Tomorrow, I will just think of the word open Zoom, and Zoom icon will open. It is absolutely possible. It's already being done today. You can see how in Australia, they showed a man tweets using his mind after having a microchip implanted in his brain. Instead of having a microchip implanted in your brain, it will be possible to analyze the millions of electrical impulses which now are recorded by a surface EEG. Today, big data analysis, it is possible to take out alpha, beta, gamma, delta, mu activity, etc. That is how we diagnose electrical seizure activity in the brain. Very soon, the electrical activity which is indigenous, peculiar, specific, and only two. You can see here on the left-hand side, hello, how are you? When I say the word hello, how are you, a certain type of electrical activity occurs. This electrical activity occurs amidst a million other electrical activities. When the signal noise ratio filter becomes better and better and better, it will be possible, and today it's already being done, decoded without a language model. It was decoded as hungry, how am you? But when they used a language model, they were able to get the right words, hello, how are you? This was all in the laboratory. It's just a question of time and the necessity, the funding available, etc., etc. So please understand that it is quite possible for you to think of something and your thought process converted into a motor action. Body augmentation. I already mentioned this, to become smarter, stronger, more capable. Wearables. I understand, I'm sure some of you know better than me. I understand that departments of textile technology in some of the IITs in India, I know Coimbatore Institute of Technology was doing this several years ago. I understand that in Kargil, our Jawans are now wearing wearables manufactured in some institutions in India. And if a bullet or a sharpener hits this wearable containing various chips, etc., a sound is emanated, and based on the picture, the sound, GPS tracker positioning system, a monitoring control station will be able to locate plus minus 1 kilometer where the person wearing this wearable is located. I understand that if the shrapnel penetrates through the vest, goes and lodges itself in the skin, one type of sound will be emanated, the muscle a different type, the ribs a different type, the heart a different types, etc. All this is already being done. Of course, they're all confidential, so we don't know exactly what is happening. Brain microchips, neural lace. Elon Musk is spending hundreds of millions of dollars in doing this. Subdermal RFID chips. All this is happening, and dozens of papers, not dozens, scores of papers are published in Nature and leading journals of the world. So this is not science fiction. This is really happening. Devices to control tremors. There are so many neurological conditions. Medicines only have some effect. And here is where the neuroengineering departments. This is the department which already has started in some places in India. So neuroengineers, engineers who are particularly been trained and knowledgeable about how the nervous system works, they are going to make devices which will exactly understand what you want. A couple of days ago, I was in St. John's Medical College in Bangalore, and this has started. This has started in many medical colleges in India. No more cadavers. Training on cadavers has drawbacks. Advantages are computer simulations. What took me 50 years to learn, what it would have taken me 10 years to see 100 different abnormal types of brain tumors. Let's say it took me 5 years. Today's student can in 3 months be exposed to exactly what took me 5 years to be exposed to. So this is the power of computer technology. This is the power of simulation. FDA has already approved virtual treatment for chronic pain. This is how you can, using infrared, ultraviolet lights, etc. Veins can be illuminated. Robots can be trained to draw a venous sample. You don't even require a human being. 3D printing. I believe that 3D printing is going to be a huge area for investment, commercially viable. And you can see here, this one interesting thing is this 3D printing phenomenal growth in the field of biology in medicine took place partly because of space exploration. NASA is in the final stages of actually, I think by the end of this year, they will choose the month in which the first manned mission to Mars will go. Now, they're time restricted. It is only once in 4 years that Mars is almost 50 million miles closer to the Earth than it is farthest distance. We don't know whether it's a one-way journey or a two-way journey. 6 months to reach Mars, 6 months there, 6 months to come back. So 18 months you're away from Earth. If the project succeeds, anybody can get acute appendicitis at the time. Anything can happen at the time. And therefore, phenomenal work is already being done. I had the privilege of spending a full day at the Johnson Space Center in Houston in December 2009. And I saw for myself you will not even be able to differentiate. These are robotic surgery being carried out, and I already mentioned this in the earlier talk. This is what robots are going to do. Again, deep learning, machine learning, all this is routinely employed. There are hundreds of papers which have been published. Today, there is incontrovertible scientific evidence that many conditions like diabetic retinopathy, tumors of the lung, certain types of prostate carcinoma, and so on, algorithm can pick up cancer slightly better than a very experienced cancer surgeon can. So this is going to totally change the way the world is. And smart drugs, I've already mentioned about how difficult it is, how many years it takes to make a drug. Millions of dollars are being spent on 3D printing of multiple medicines on what is called a for failure in compliance and adherence. And I mean, when I say I am only saying as a educated person, as a medical doctor, familiar with all this, but when it comes to my own medication, there have been so many instances when I've just not complied. I've just not taken the tablets 3 times a day, which I should have taken, even though I know it is necessary. So failure of compliance and adherence in taking medicines is the commonest cause for increase in blood sugar, for recurrence of seizures, for increase in hypertension, and so on and so forth. It is not because of anything else, but sheer lack of compliance. As you grow older, you forget. It's sometimes very difficult. The normal person above the age of 75 worldwide takes 12 to 15 tablets every day. This is what the World Health Organization has reported. I'm very happy that I'm abnormal, but the normal person takes 15 tablets a day. So sometimes it's very difficult to remember all this. So enormous research is being done on how to make this into one single tablet, may not even per day, but even per week. This involves a phenomenal amount of pharmacology, pharmacotherapeutics, medicinal chemistry, and so on. So all this is going to happen where a single poly pill. Again, I'm showing you some made in India. What is happening in India? When I was a postgraduate, when I was a practicing doctor, when a patient came to me with a wound infection, I would naturally send it for culture sensitivity, wait for 48 hours, find out the name of the organism, what drug it is sensitive to, and prescribe that drug. Of course, based on my experience, I would prescribe some possibly appropriate antibiotic prior to that. Today, of course, this is still not yet fully in clinical trials, are still going on. Today, with autofluorescence, the engineers and technologists, you people have shown the different bacteria emit a different type of fluorescence, and you have been so fantastic. You have made a monitoring device, NIRS, near infrared spectroscopy, all sorts of the big gear from the spectrum of light, and using artificial intelligence based on thousands of samples, you have now proved that it is possible with a Bluetooth-enabled smartphone device like this. All you do is to shine a light onto the wound, a color-coded AI output output will show you with a 95% reliability the name of the pathogen, what type of organism it is. Not only that, it will show you the depth of the wound, it will show you the vascularity, the blood supply to the wound, it will show you the oxygenation to the wound. All these are very important for a surgeon to decide on whether to excise the wound or not. What would have taken us weeks and what would have been done with still inaccuracy today will be possible with a handheld device using the most sophisticated optical biopsy, as you call it. This requires a phenomenal knowledge of optics and physics compounded with help from the medical doctor. Capsule endoscopy. Again, I'm very happy that one of my juniors in Madras Medical College started this almost 15 years ago in Coimbatore. Today, this is freely available in India. You just swallow a capsule with a camera inside that capsule. And as the capsule goes through your digestive system, it takes photographs of the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, large intestine, etc. excreted. You collect the excreta, collect the capsule, and then find out what is available. Robot drawing blood. You can see here, this is now again available. Of course, the machinery is so complicated to draw some sample of blood, but it may be required in certain situations in areas where humans are not there, for example. Predict, prevent, personalize. I had touched upon this earlier, and these are all a list of drugs which already have been personalized. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with, say, when you develop urinary infection, you send the urine for culture and sensitivity. It is sensitive to this antibiotic, so you prescribe this antibiotic. But how silly it is, how absurd it is to even imagine that 7.3 billion people on this planet will respond to the antibiotic in the same way. That's common sense. But there was nothing we could do about it until recently. Today, we know precisely what is our genetic structure, how I would respond to this antibiotic. And today, it is believed that the entire human population could be divided like blood group, like A, B, and O. Let's say there are 4 blood groups, perhaps there are 30, 40, 50, but not more than that, 50 different groups of people, each of whom would respond to the antibiotic in type A, type B, type C, type Z, and so on and so forth. Using a simple genomic analysis, I could be allocated, I could be classified as belonging to type G. And therefore, when I send the urine for culture sensitivity, in the future, the laboratory will not only say, this organism is grown, this antibiotic is effective, it will also say that I belong to this type of subspecies. And based on this, the antibiotic will be tailor-made, 3D printed. Certain parts of the antibiotic will be changed, taking into account my genetic profiling. And therefore, the 10% of people today, or the 20% of people today who do not respond to the antibiotic, even though they have been prescribed the correct antibiotic, because of difference in genetics, will now have a 100% response. In other words, medicine of the future will be personalized. So this is the future, what is going to happen. This has already started in most of the more sophisticated nursing homes and hospitals. We are talking of IOMT. Everything today is monitoring. The number of humans will become less and less. We will have one nurse looking after 10 beds with 10% more efficiency than what she's doing. Medication intake tracking. A message will automatically be sent to the pharmacy stating that you have only 3 more tablets left. The pharmacy will dispense the order. A robot will come and hand over that, open the thing, fill the capsule. And this is not science fiction. This is already happening. Whether it is required from an ethical point of view, from a human point of view, from a commercial point of view, will people go out of jobs or will there be new jobs created? All this only time alone will tell. Competitive advantages, technology, etc. Medical inventory and equipment tracking, drug tracking, smart hospital space, and so on. Again, before treatment, after treatment, mobile applications. Your mobile phone already has the power of the computer which put the first man into outer space 58 years ago. That is the power which my phone has today. And obviously, the smartphone in 5 years from now is going to have enough power in it that it will be able to do every one of these things. Laptops will become redundant. Desktops already have become redundant. You will have screens you can use for people, the smartphone, you will have paints, special paints, which will make the surface reflecting. So using a smartphone, I will be able to project it on my dining table, on my screen, anywhere where I am. That will be it. All this is already available. The media created a lot of hype about this. Unfortunately, the person died about 4 weeks ago, 3 months after a pig's heart was transplanted. But like all innovations, like all beginnings, this has shown that it is not impossible. When I was a medical student, when I was a postgraduate, when I was an assistant professor, if I had said that A group blood could be transfused to a person with B group, I'm sure my teachers would have withdrawn my MBBS degree and sent me back to school. Today, it is possible to transfuse A group blood to a person who is B group blood. It is possible to use a pig's heart, suitably genetically modified, and transplant it into a human, and that human had lived for many months. So this is the future. The difference between a human being and a pig, I'm sorry to hurt your ego, is less than 3%. The difference between a chimpanzee and me is less than 2 to 3%. So all of us with king-sized egos, we need to understand that that living beings are almost the same wherever they are. Metaverse. This photograph was taken of me when I was in Taipei a couple of years ago. I spent several hours in a virtual laboratory trying to immerse myself, understand what it was, etc. I never thought that this would actually be available in Chennai. A few weeks ago, a state-of-the-art simulation laboratory was commissioned by the Apollo hospitals. Today, we have all this. Today, doctors can do all this, can simulate, can immerse themselves into the real world, the real virtual world, so that when they go into the operation theater the next day, they would know exactly what to encounter, because the previous day they have operated virtually on the same patient, meaning the same patient CT scan, MRI, chest X-ray, his blood pressure, his blood sugar, his ECG, his weight, everything simulated. I did this once about 10 years ago. I cut an artery accidentally, and on the screen came the message, "Hey, you idiot, your patient died 30 seconds ago." But it's better that I kill my patient on a model, on a virtual screen, than in the real world. So in the future, surgeons are going to spend more time outside the operation theater, learning the actual procedure, than inside the operation theater. The world of extended reality in healthcare, virtual reality applications, you name it, and there is an application. Dentistry, rehabilitation, pain alleviation, phobias, anxiety. There's not going to be a single medical condition where this cannot be applied at all. Wearables are now routine. I think there are at least 30 to 40 companies which are extensively funded by venture capitalists, and the medical world believes that wearable health monitoring system where you can measure not just ECG and body temperature or BP, but your oxygen saturation. This is going to be particularly useful in harsh, rugged environments like oil and gas, industry, aerospace, security, and defense, and so on. Virtual rehabilitation, tele-rehabilitation, $785 million, and in Fortune reports huge analysis, etc., etc. Again, another BIRAC supported project. where a device shines multiple light sources from ultraviolet, infrared, near infrared, captures the multispectral images in 60 seconds. AI algorithm analyzes this and tells you about the rate of wound infection, degree of wound infection, tissue oxygenation, wound dimensions in 300 seconds. You can see the report here. You can see actual clinical pictures. So this is what is going to happen. I'd already mentioned about games. Games are going to be used as a part of regular medical treatment. Unfortunately, the war is probably likely to delay this, but otherwise next year, I'm not talking of 2030, 2023 was supposed to be the launch of India's first 3-manned mission in low Earth orbit, 250 kilometers above the Earth. I had the honor of being the only medical doctor to present a paper at the symposium last year, and it was fascinating to see 500 industries from India involved in the launch of the Gaganyaan mission. And again, about in 2019, I was very surprised when the editor Neurology India agreed to my request, and we brought out what was probably the first in the world. We brought out a special edition of Neurology India, which is one of the top 8 journals in neurosciences in the world with an impact index of 2.6. We brought out a full publication. Each of these papers have been downloaded several thousand times now on extraterrestrial neurosciences. Never in my life would I have imagined that a stage would come when we could bring out an edition on extraterrestrial neurosciences. And this is the future. And this is from India. This is not from some foreign country. NASA astronauts' blood clot in space gets treated by a doctor on Earth. A very interesting situation where an astronaut, as part of a scientific project, he was doing a Doppler on himself, and then to his horror, he found he had a clot in the jugular vein. But being an astronaut, super trained, he sent the pictures, everything to doctors on Earth. So though they told him, you need to take this injection, that tablet, but then the spaceship ISS, International Space Station, had medicines only for 40 days. And this astronaut was scheduled to be there for 9 months. So what did they do? No problem. They delivered it. They flew a rocket and had the entire pharmaceutical supplies delivered to him. And he landed back on Earth after 6 months, absolutely normal. So these are what is happening in the real world. If this can happen with ISS, it can happen anywhere in the world. I could go on, but I think I will very quickly go through this. The last part of my talk will be how this is a topic of controversy, including the Gaganyaan mission. When India still does not have boiled water, when we still do not have electricity in thousands of villages, are you justified in setting apart 10,000 crores to launch somebody into outer space? Is this an ego trip? I have enough scientific evidence to show that healthcare from space, that healthcare specifically designed for those in microgravity is going to help every one of us. And I gave a 45-minute talk on this. I'll just show 3 slides to show how whatever we are using today is a direct spin-off of what NASA did. NASA brings out a capsule every 3 months where it shows the latest one had showed 2,000 plus products in the last 55 years, which is a direct spin-off of what was done purely by NASA. Capsule swallowed, I've already mentioned this. Charge-coupled devices used on the Hubble Space Telescope to convert a distant star's light directly into digital images. This was the physics used for better imaging of breast tissue and new digital mammograms. Programmable pacemakers, microtransmitters, laser angioplasty, light-emitting diodes used in neurosurgery. Where did all these come from? All these came from modifications from space technology. Detailed studies of how cells grow, the growth of cells in microgravity, the growth of microbes, urinary infection. Astronauts developed urinary infection. The urine was cultured in microgravity, and this gave us a better understanding of diabetes on Earth. Ventricular assist device, A life-saving heart pump for patients awaiting heart transplants was designed entirely by combining supercomputer simulation of fluid flowing through rocket engines. In the previous talk, somebody asked a question on the reliability of point of care diagnostics. A drop of blood analyzes 50 blood parameters. All this is a direct fallout of space technology. Smart watches, wearable clothes, everything is entirely because we wanted it for astronauts. This amazing 4D Doppler ultrasound is as good or better than the most complex, most expensive ultrasound available on Earth today. This was designed in order to monitor the health of astronauts who are in the International Space Station for periods lasting for 6 months to 1 year. Unfortunately, in India, because of the Antenatal Act, because of female feticide, because unfortunately, even today, the unborn girl abortions and medical termination of pregnancy is done, the government of India has strictly banned even portable ultrasound. So I don't think I will ever see this in my lifetime in India, even though technologically it is available. These are all papers published in peer-reviewed journals. You probably think these authors are totally mad. I sometimes think so, but then they can't be totally mad. And it is only mad people who have brought us to where we are today. Here are groups of people, all PhDs and whatnot, already simulating digital health technologies to support human mission to Mars. At the moment, it's purely theoretical, but it takes into account 200 different factors, gives weightage to it, and already starts this. 2 days ago, I got a WhatsApp forward from a friend in the United States announcing the first fellowship program in the University of Arizona, a 1-year fellowship program exclusively for developing surgical instruments to be used to operate in microgravity. I won't be surprised if in a few years, the American board certification, there will be a postgraduate program for surgery in outer space. I could go on and on, but I would like my take-home message to stop with this. 25 years ago, 1998, if I remember right, 1998, I was invited to give an institute lecture at the IIT Kanpur. My son was studying there at that time, so I was there in IIT Kanpur, and I said, I think it is sad that engineering colleges and medical colleges are located so far away apart. Few months later, I was appointed as an adjunct professor in IIT. Slowly things happened. Today, I'm thrilled. In fact, 4 days ago, I met the director of the Indian Institute of Science. The Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, has started the program on an MD PhD program. Hopefully, in 2 years from now, India's first 800-bedded multi-specialty hospital will come. An MD PhD program, the duration is still being worked out, either 6 years or 7 years, where the brightest of the bright will be taught to be a medical scientist and an engineer. IIC Bangalore is also planning to offer an MD MTech program. So there will be, these are all MBBS students. So you must have an MBBS degree. The basic entry point will be an MBBS. After an MBBS, you do 5 years and you get an MD degree and an MTech degree. So you know everything, not everything, you know quite a bit about engineering and technology. IIT Kharagpur Medical College is yet to start. Hospital is started. Hopefully next year it will start. Though the School of Medical Science and Technology has offering an MMS, Master of Medical Science program, a 3-year course of engineering and technology for MBBS candidates. I think about 7 or 8 batches have passed out already. IIT Kanpur is in the final stages. The governing council has authorized it. In 2-3 years, they will be starting a medical college offering an MBBS degree. I mean, it's fascinating to see 2 IITs offering MBBS degree. I do know that IIT Madras and Professor M.S. Ananth was the director. There was some talk about it. I have no idea what is happening now. So this is the future. The e-patient of tomorrow will be an avatar. He will be electronic, equipped, enabled, empowered, engaged, and an expert, facilitated by wearables, health sensors, and other innovations, making technology the basis of healthcare. The healthcare area is the only recession-proof industry. Irrespective of economic slowdown or war, healthcare is necessary before death and even before birth and even after death. Even when you are in your mother's womb, ultrasounds are done, and even after death, spermatozoa are stored. 10 years ago in AIIMS, Delhi, the first case where the wife asked for this spermatozoa or testicular biopsy to be done and the spermatozoa to be deep frozen so that she could use it to father an unborn child because her husband was brain dead in a road traffic accident. So this is what healthcare is all about. So long as humankind is there, healthcare has to exist, and similarly, technology has to exist. You can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. If Moses were to come back to the earth today, every one of the 10 commandments which he brought down to earth will have the words, thou shalt digitally transform. So technology is here to stay, and those non-technologists who are shy of technology, they have already written their obituary. But again, as an old-fashioned doctor, I have been brought up for tender loving care, to wipe the tears from a patient. Even if I cannot cure the patient, I can at least empathize, sympathize with him using technology. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. It's just a brilliant exposition, and you've delivered it with so much of passion. Fantastic. I have a few questions, Doctor. Probably I'll post them, which has come on the chat box. You talked about small bowel endoscopy, the digestive tract. Can that technique be used to view other body parts, is the question.
That is a very good question. I mean, I'm not an expert, as I said, but I think it will be difficult because you need an opening. You need something like the esophagus. You need the mouth, the esophagus, the intestine. Please understand, it is intraluminal. It is not outside the lumen. So unless there is a cavity through which the capsule goes. But having said that, we do endoscopy of every part of the body. Brain endoscopy is routinely done. I have assisted in a few cases. You can put an endoscope through the nostril. You can put an endoscope through the ear. You can make a small hole on the skull, just a 7 millimeter hole, and the diameter of the endoscopes are becoming smaller and smaller, fiber optic, and then you can navigate it, you can go through it. So endoscopes are being used, but not as a capsule. It's a fiber optic endoscope, 20, 30, 50, 100 centimeters long, just 5 to 6 millimeters in diameter.
Okay, I don't know this question. You have a microchip, can it get inserted into the brain?
Yes.
If it, then will it affect the brain? The question.
The whole idea is to affect the brain. That's the whole idea of implanting the microchip. Again, we know enough for the brain, exactly where to inject. See, today the brain has been mapped with uncanny precision. So for Parkinsonism, which is routinely being done in India, deep brain stimulation, we have what is called the thalamus. In the thalamus, there are specific areas. It's called VIP, VIM, etc., etc. So we know exactly stereotaxy. Stereotactics mean 3 dimensions. Very easy. X-axis, Y-axis, and Z-axis. Now, for example, I am 4 feet away from this wall. I am 5 feet away from this wall, and I'm 10 feet from the roof. So if you drop 3 lines, X-axis, Y-axis, and Z-axis, I can only be at a particular point. Here I'm talking of feet. Inside the brain, I'm talking of millimeters. So I'm saying that I'm 122 millimeters from the midline of the brain, 82 millimeters from this part of the brain, 62 millimeters from this part of the brain. And once I fix the coordinates, I can go only there. I can't go anywhere else. So I put that microchip exactly where I want it to be.
Okay. Okay, another question, Doctor. Is there a possibility to make virtually impaired people to see the environment through virtual neuron interface?
Sorry, repeat that. I didn't hear you. Is it possible?
Is it possible to make visually impaired people to see the environment through virtual neuron interface?
Very good question. Honest answer, I don't know. From a purely theoretical point of view, the answer is yes. I do know there are case reports of people who have been totally blind. Now, with electronic equipment being implanted, it is difficult to say whether they see what we see. And the other problem is you want them to see what we see. So, it's very difficult to say that. But totally blind people have been able to get a very vague idea. They're able to distinguish a vehicle, a car coming in front of you. They're able to distinguish a 6 foot, 120 kilo person in front of you. That sort of thing they're able to visualize, and they're able to avoid. They're able to avoid an oncoming object. So the very fact they're able to avoid an oncoming object clearly shows they're able to see the object. But then they will not be able to see, like I am able to see your beautiful colored full sleeve shirt you're wearing with the multiple colors, etc. That sort of thing, no, obviously no. Whether they can experience, see, you need to understand that experiencing a virtual world does not depend on optics. Experiencing a virtual world cannot be, I wish life was so simple. Experiencing a virtual world is not a function of the retina, the optic nerve, the optic chiasma. It is a function of the supreme. It is a function of the highest center in the brain. That is why the Bhagavad Gita goes on talking about all these things. See, experiencing. Now, so for example, when I listen to M.S. Subbulakshmi's song, I can give a 1 hour lecture on the acoustics of M.S. Subbulakshmi's song, but I cannot downgrade M.S. Subbulakshmi to mere sound, pitch, timbre quality. It is an experience based on retention, registration, reception, registration, and recall. I mean, the Suprabhadam, how I heard the Suprabhadam for the first time, where I heard it, what is the impact it had on me, how am I able to recall, how am I repositioning myself, etc., etc. It's a complex process. So, I mean, see, the human body is so fantastic. No computer, the computer at best can only be able to, simplify the process into 300 different constituents. It cannot tell us how we are able to integrate these 300 different constituents into giving a meaning. At the end of the day, it's a meaning, it's an experience. Correct. That is going to be impossible.
Okay, another question is somebody has asked me about artificial womb technology, and is it affordable to citizens in India?
Artificial
womb technology, WOMB, womb technology.
What do you mean by artificial womb technology? If you're talking of assisted reproduction, of course, it's being done by the hundreds in at least 50 to 100, like 200 centers in India. If you're talking about artificial insemination, so-called test tube baby, implantation of the zygote into the uterus and delivering the baby full term, there are thousands of babies in India who have been born like that. Every day, Madras city probably delivers one baby like that.
Yes, doctor. Okay, another question is, doctor, do you feel that the medical equipment, like as a CT scanner, MRI scanner, or robotics, we are not manufacturing in India, we are importing. So what is your view? When India will be able to manufacture such equipment of international standards and quality?
Okay, the first MRI equipment is in the very, very, very final stages of being, for the last 10 years, this project has been going on. It's a Government of India project. Hopefully next year, the clinical trials will start. I'm not the full expert in that, but I do know because some of the committee members with whom I interact, they were telling me this was discussed. So next year, we probably will have the first MRI. CT scans are now already undergoing trials, and I think they'll be available in the market in a couple of years. Ultrasounds are also available now. They're already in the market. Totally Indian-made ultrasounds are already in the market.
Okay, I think any more questions? I think someone has referred to some Dr. Abraham Varghese talk on on 10 on Doctor's Touch. I think he has also suggested that's a good place to listen.
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions? Otherwise, we are nearer to the time. Okay, Ram, probably you can.
Yeah, Subbu. So that was awesome. I'm left speechless. So
Correct.
we are very
Absolutely.
fortunate today to, I am fortunate to be thanking the speaker of the day. So before that, I'll proceed that. I'll start with Subbu's preamble in our CTM core team meetings a couple of weeks ago, when Subbu volunteered to bring Dr. Ganapathy for the benefit of our partner institutions. That's an awesome thing he has done. So I'll thank Subbu first. And then the preamble he built, it was absolutely to that mark. Dr. Ganapathy is not only though he started off as a neurosurgeon, a top-notch neurosurgeon, the areas of expertise, and with 2 decades of experience in telemedicine, I do not know whether to call him a doctor or engineer or so many other disciplines put together, and it emphasized the multidisciplinary nature of the world we live in. So he is keeping, and then what is evidenced is the 7 decades, 6+ decades of wisdom is there in the brain, but the brain is younger. I think it's the youngest brain in the audience here today. Is so much of energy and youth. It left me, dumbfounded. I have taken notes, like I used to do in the classes. And then it was he said that healthcare is most important. So that was very pertinent. He started that even before birth it starts, and then even after you're dead, it's relevant. And then I'm very thankful he has acknowledged at the outset the scientists, engineers, and technologists, without whom you could not have had a doctor in your pocket or lab. So he has taken keen interest, and he is also made himself an engineer, and he has acknowledged them. So he has given an altogether rounded presentation. And then going forward to the future, it was quite rapid, and with chips implanted. And then I was thinking with the neuroprosthesis where your thought could come out as a tweet. So here I was a little, this could be a little dangerous. Naughty thought, in the mind of a sober-looking man, it could, get exposed. So these were some of my thoughts. So altogether, I cannot really sum up the impact of the speech, but it's all there for you to see. And the question and answer sessions also. People are always interested in the human body, and the questions were relevant. And then I think the audience got all the answers. And I do hope that the young students and their faculty who are with us today, they will be inspired. On the other hand, that's something which I wanted to say, that he was very inspirational about our nation and about India. And then you are all the future, You have such a senior person to inspire all of you. I do hope that many of you take interest in this field, and no matter what your discipline, you can contribute to healthcare. So that's a channel that's useful to you. So all in all, it was awe-inspiring, and it was truly, breathtaking. So thank you, Dr. Ganapathy, and thanks to all the participants and for their keen interest. and also to the PALS PMO Robin for anchoring the event without any glitch and for everything to have gone on smoothly. And thanks to God Almighty. With that, I end my thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. It was fantastic. And we will revert to you if there are any more questions. Thank you very much.
Very much. I still am old-fashioned enough. I wish we had a direct face-to-face lecture in an auditorium instead of all these machines.
We will do that very soon, Doctor.
And the colleges are asking for it. So next year it will be a hybrid model. But the thing is, it's held only in a cluster. The colleges in that zone only will be benefited. Of course, now they have live streaming also. At least part of the participants will get the direct.
Thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Doctor. Appreciate it.
Nobody. Thank you, Subbu sir. Thank you,
Robin. We can close the session.
Yeah.
Your logistics announcement, everything is over. Hey, Robin, you have made all your announcements.
Yeah. That participants I posted the